Link runs a group of internet and technology policy here at Verizon. And he works with a variety of different stakeholder groups, and I think maybe it's probably best just to let Link describe his role, maybe a little bit about his career and his team, and what he views as the mission here of his group.
Thanks, Paul. We have three main purposes in Verizon. First purpose is to focus on domestic internet policy. So a lot of our work involves trying to figure out what kinds of positions the company ought to be taking on things like privacy online, online safety, cybersecurity, things that relate to internet and technology. The second role is to reach out to and talk to and communicate with and listen to, frankly, a lot outside what we call stakeholders, people that have, and companies and organizations that have an interest in the same policies that we have an interest in. So a lot of our time in that sphere is spent talking to these groups, finding out what their concerns are, talking to them about what we think the right policies are, and frankly, sometimes adjusting our policies as we learn from them and they learn from us. So examples of the groups we work with in that area are things like we call think tanks in Washington. They're groups that study policy. So groups like the Heritage Foundation, American Enterprise Institute, Brookings, a lot of tech organizations like the Information Technology Industry Council, Tech America, groups like that. Technology companies like Google and Facebook, companies that have a Washington presence and have a policy presence. And then also academics. I, for example, am on the board of something called the Telecommunications Policy Research Council, which is basically academics from across the U.S. that study telecommunications, internet, and privacy, online safety policy. And they do white papers, and every year there's a meeting for them to present their papers to their peers and also to people like me and others in the industry, partly for dialogue, partly to get a sense of what people think about their studies and their white papers. So that in a nutshell is what my group does. I have people on my staff that have technology backgrounds. So one of the people that works for me is an IP engineer who did a lot of the engineering work for FIOS, Sanjay Udani. I've got people that work in healthcare and telematics areas, because it may be surprising to people in the Internet Society, but Verizon actually does a lot of work in the healthcare area, the telematics, which is basically connected in intelligent autos, that kind of thing. So in technologies that are in cars, communications in cars, those kinds of things. We just bought Hughes Telematics, which is a company that does that. And then we do a lot of energy management too. So I have a person that works on that, energy policy and policies around how to use technologies like our communications technologies to manage energy better in buildings and at homes.
Great. So you definitely cover a lot, and I experienced some of that when I was here. So do you think this is a typical kind of a group in a Washington, D.C. policy organization, or is this somewhat unique when you look at other organizations that you might be familiar with, having a group specifically focused on technology policy?
I think other companies do have people that do some of what I do. I don't think anybody probably does the kind of expansive work that we do, for example, on healthcare policy and energy and that kind of thing, and probably don't do as much on the education side of things. So, you know, Sanjay Udani, for example, with me, you did some of the same thing when you were working with me, spends a lot of time going out educating people on how the internet works, how the technology works, and why it's important to understand it in the context of policy. And I'll give you an example of what we try to do in the SOPA-PIPA battle. Now, Verizon didn't publicly take a strong position against the adoption of the SOPA-PIPA legislation, but we had really strong concerns with it. So we spent a lot of time actually educating people about how DNS blocking, what it would mean, how it would affect DNSSEC adoption, that kind of thing, from a technology standpoint. So, and we not only went to the Hill and did a lot of work there, educating staff, but also the media. So went over and talked to people at Politico and the Hill and groups like that, media groups like that that cover technology policy. And part of our reason for doing that kind of outreach, is because although we don't believe technology should always drive policy, we do believe if you're going to adopt policy, you want to do it in a way that's intelligent, that actually works with the technology and either doesn't hurt the technology and innovation that we want to see on the internet, or in some sense it's just not it doesn't work. So in the case of DNS blocking, we always felt it would be ineffective, and that was one of our messages, was it just won't work, so this kind of approach is not the right approach.
Okay, so it sounds like just this approach of working with a variety of stakeholders and educating really does help the policy debate move forward. I have you to thank, because as part of my job here, I was assigned to work with the Internet Society. So it actually helped me get to know the group that I work for now, and I'm very much enjoying the position in Internet Society, and we're doing great work there. So thanks for that.